Most of them are not. Well, whose fault is that? Well, I have a belief system. It is the fault of the managers and the leaders who don't understand how to tie people to profit to make that happen. Does your company culture motivate job performance? 80% said yes, it does. Okay, so they all know that culture is important. Do you believe accountability creates a positive work culture? 84% believe accountability is important. In fact, wait till I show you the Gen Z statistics. Do you have clear performance metrics for all positions? Or do you wish that we would have clear performance metrics, I should say? 79% want to be measured on performance metrics. I found that shocking. And 63, but here's the real finding here. Gen Z, we asked them, would you quit if you were told you would be fired for coming 5 minutes late to work? 63% said that they would quit because they have to come to work on time. Anybody else want to go like, woo, how are we managing this workplace? Yes? All right, so what is the answer to this problem? Because it's not okay to have this problem. So I'll give you all this research and I'll give you these slides so you'll have this information, because what you're going to find out is there are different, you're not managing one culture. You are managing many different cultures. People want different things. Like we figured out that the young people, Gen Zs, want a fun culture. They want a company that's up to something good. That's what motivates them. We found executives, their number one reason why they stay in an organization is that they're being developed and we're investing in their development. You need to know not only what is in getting them excited, but also what is their quit trigger. And again, all this, I have a white paper with all this research that I would recommend you take back to your boards, to your groups, to understand what is it within your culture that you want to have happen. Now, I grew up on a farm. Anybody else grow up on a farm besides me? A few of us here, okay. So my dad had these 3 words he would say over and over again. Anybody know what those would be? No, not I love you. Figure it out. Okay. So I was 7 years old. It was the last day of 2nd grade. I got off of the bus. My dad met me by the bus and said, get changed. I need some help right away. And I said, okay. So I went and I put on my clothes and got over to the tractor. And he said, okay, you're going to drive the tractor with the corn planter up the valley. And I'm thinking, okay, all right. So I got in this Alice D17 tractor. And as I'm sitting up there, I'm realizing with my legs that were about the size of a celery stalk, that pushing in a clutch required 2 legs. And so I would take both legs and I'd bring them over to the one side to push in the clutch. And of course, I couldn't touch the clutch and the brake at the same time. So I'd drag my foot all the way over to hit the brake. How many of you realize this is really dangerous for me to be driving a tractor up the valley where there were cars when I'm 7 years old? And yet my father always had the motto of figure it out. When I was 12 years old, I was sitting in the breezeway between the milk house and the barn, and we were looking at the catalog for the county fair, and he said, you know, you need to take your 4-H calf to the fair. I think you could win grand champion. And I said, Dad, look, right here. There's a rule book. It says you need to be 13 years old and a boy. And my dad said, some rules are stupid. You're taking that bull to the fair. Well, if you've ever been to a county fair, what you do is you walk backwards with your animal, and the judge is picking out all the animals, and so whoever gets left in the circle last wins the grand champion prize. I am down to the second, there are only 2 of us left, and we're going around this circle, the judges are looking at things, and the mother of the young man showing the other animal runs up to the judge with the rule book. And I got the reserve grand champion. But I knew in my heart I won the grand champion. But I also learned from my dad, some rules are stupid. And my motto is always, who made up that stupid rule? My very first job out of college, I was the very first agricultural lender. I worked with 423 different men. First convention was at the Lake Geneva Playboy Club. I'm the only woman there without a push-up bra on. How many of you think that would be kind of strange? And in every job I ever had, I was always the only woman who ever did it. Why? Because I had a belief system given to me by my father that you can do whatever a man can do. We have belief systems going on in these organizations holding people back from performing, and it's just not working in our organizations, and it's becoming a bigger and bigger problem. So let's talk a little bit about, so 63% basically blame not having enough resources for why they're not getting their job done. I have a buddy named Dr. Dan Diamond. He is the guy that, he's probably in Jamaica right now, he's the guy that whenever there's a crisis, he volunteers his time and he takes a medical crew in to go save them. And so he says when he lands on the ground, there's usually no electricity, there's no running water, and people are bleeding and dying, and he says he's working with teams that they're meeting for the first time today, and they haven't had any relationships whatsoever, and they come together as a team. And he said to me one time, he says, I believe that the Gallup Culture Survey is the most evil thing that has ever happened in corporate America. I said, well, why is that? He says, because one of the questions in that culture survey is, do you have the resources you need to do your job? And he said, that's ridiculous. You're teaching them that they don't have to figure it out to make things happen when everybody else needs to just go make that happen. And I couldn't agree more. We have a enabled workforce who believes that as long as they don't have everything they need, which they will never have, that they're not held accountable to results. So we have a mindset issue, yes? And it's a crisis. And it can be, and people can be saved when you get at them early enough. I was teaching a breakthrough banking boot camp recently, and a young man walks up to me during the break, and he says, Roxanne, can I talk to you? I said, sure. He said, I just want you to know I'm an Emmerich Group baby. I said, ooh, I don't know what happens in these hotel rooms at night when I'm not paying attention. And I was just joking with him, and he goes, no. He says, my mother was working at the bank when you first came in, and she loves the principles that you teach. Because we teach things like there is no whining. If you have a complaint, bring it to someone who can do something about it. There is no gossip. If you have a complaint about somebody, the only person you can talk to about it is someone who can do something about it, and anything other than that is gossip, and we're going to miss you. We have a zero tolerance for gossip. We have if you blow it, you don't get to have an excuse in a story. You just get to say, I blew it, here's my massive corrective action plan. These are just some of the many principles that we ask people to live by in our learning platform. We call it sandbox etiquette. How to play in the sandbox nice with the other kids. I have CEOs all the time that always say, hey, can I give this to my kids? Because I want my kids to learn this stuff so that they can be successful when they get into the workplace. Absolutely. So anyway, so this young man comes up and he said, I'm an Emmerich Group baby, and he says, all I've ever wanted to do all my life growing up under my mother's teaching me these principles was I wanted to work as a branch manager at the bank and be a pastor on the weekend. I said, what do you do? He said, I'm a branch manager at the bank and I'm a pastor on the weekend. I said, wow, I just got goosebumps. Another young man walks up behind him. He had heard the conversation and he said, I'm an Emmerich Group baby too. And the reason I share this with you is I'm telling you that our youth is starved for direction. They want to know how to be great human beings. We're not teaching them that in the workplace. The workplace is the new family. This is where we teach them how to be good humans. We teach them possibilities. We teach them ethics. We teach them to live their life fully and to not be self-consumed, but to go out there and make a difference in the world. And when they start catching on to this, they're loving it, and the businesses prosper because of it. We teach our banks the number one value that they should hold is client success. If you think that having a satisfied customer is the answer, let me assure you, a satisfied customer will leave you every day for a better rate. But if you make them profoundly successful, they will never, ever leave you. I got to believe that applies to every business in this room. All right, so let's talk about this individual and team transformation and the untapped potential.
I feel.
Do you feel alive?
myself.
I feel happy of yourself too. What do you got? Any words of wisdom? What about for all the other kids trying to learn how to ride their bike? Can you say anything to them?
Everybody, I know you can believe in yourself. If you believe in yourself, you will know how to ride a bike. If you don't, you just keep practicing. You won't get the hang of it, I know it. If you keep practicing, you will get the hang of it, and then you can get better and better at it after you do it.
Give me some thumbs up.
Thumbs up, everybody!
All right.
For rock and roll!
All right. It feels good.
Thumbs up, everybody!
All right.
For rock and roll!
He won't go away. I love the resilience of this kid, yes? There is a need in all of us to conquer something nearly impossible, yes? It is what drives the human human spirit to do something great. When we give our team members a game worth playing, they can rise to the occasion, provided we take them through stage-appropriate accountability. So many of you have read John Wooden's books, and John Wooden talked about how when he would bring a new basketball star into his college team, how he'd say, "Sit down, big boy, we're going to learn how to tie our shoes, and we're going to get this right." Just like riding a bike is one little thing, one step, it's the incremental steps that you take along the way to get people good at the things that they do. One of the first things we do when we come into a bank is we say, okay, we're going to all learn how to answer the phones. Phones are handled in hideous ways in banks. Oh my gosh, they have sales prevention departments, yes? I swear to God, I'm going to buy a bank in Naples. I will. I swear to God I will, because I'm still looking for a bank. I've lived here for 7 years. I'm still looking for a bank in Naples. I keep opening accounts here. I put some money in and I go, not for me, not for me, not for me. Nobody understands how to take care of customers here and to make a difference in their lives. It's absolutely crazy that we don't have that in Naples, and it's a crime. So here's a young woman who came into the accredited banking professional program. She was in charge of electronic banking. So basically, she was an operations person. She had the right emotional intelligence profile to be an accredited banking professional. So we put her into the program. This young woman did 43 million of new business in her very first year with no portfolio whatsoever. Why? Because she just stepped into the game and learned the basics. But every time I taught that class, she was in there and she was always the highest on the gamification points for having done the most work. So having their ability to see that they can win by doing the work gets them proficient at doing something that matters. It's part of the game to make things happen. Whoa, he keeps coming up again. All right, so I want to talk about unlocking the potential of your team. And we are going backwards here. Maybe I'm doing something wrong here. I'm sure I am. Here we go. All right. So the key here is Leslie isn't the only one. So I want to close off our ideas today by talking about, when I started something called the Institute for Extraordinary Banking, and every year we throw an awards banquet, and we celebrate the best banks in America, and we have independent judges who know the industry well. They look at these different banks, and they measure them in 5 different categories: their measurable customer success, their impact on the community, their profitability and effectiveness at basically running the bank, and philanthropy projects. Basically, like, are they showing up and really doing what a community bank can do? And many of these banks tell this kind of a story, how they double in size with a third fewer employees. And so this bank is now voted best place to work in Illinois, the #1 place in Illinois for young people to work. But the real story here is they doubled in size and they have a third less people. I'm going to suggest that you got too many people in your organization. And some of them are actually making for more work for the others. And you kind of sort of know who they are, yes? That exists all over. So the game we need to get into. So when I just started this performance advantage funds, when we're investing in different banks, one of the things that we look for is banks that need to figure out how to get their team proficient at what they're doing to make things happen. And this would be a perfect example. Our largest investor right now actually is the family office that invest in the bank, and he said we're the best return on investment of all of their investments that they invested in. And so when I told him I was starting the Performance Advantage Fund to invest in banks and go in and do this as an investor, he was like, I'm so in, and so they became our largest investor coming in. Because the key here is most banks are being run with great inefficiencies because their people believe they're working hard, but busy is a 4-letter word. Being good and proficient is the game that we're up to. All right, so it's all about consistent, repeatable results and making that happen. Here's some pictures of the awards program just to get a sense. We give away a car. We've been giving away a school in Africa every year in the name of the bank, and so that's part of the game that we've been playing just to kind of give you an idea. So it's not luck, it's a proven system. I had the great opportunity when I first started in this business. I had been running a bank that we set some national records in terms of growth and profitability, and I was having a blast. And then I was like, I read this book called Power of Purpose, and I knew that for the rest of my life, I wanted to be going into businesses and transforming them into being the highest performers. So one of my very first clients was called Great Clips. They cut hair. And so they asked me to speak, and I went back for many years. Every year I worked with them. They were the #1 performing franchise in the country. And I remember going to this banquet. At the end of my speech, the CEO said, would you like to come to the banquet tonight? And I said, well, gosh, all the women have updos, and they got gowns on. I got my business jacket on. She goes, oh, you're fine, come on. So I'm sitting right about there in the room, and they've got fancy lights and fancy tables, and everybody's got sparkles on. And somebody comes up to the stage and they said, and for the region that had the most increase of hairspray sales, and the winner is, and they shouted out a name, and this woman comes running down the aisle. She's got tears coming down her. People are standing up, and I'm thinking, it's hairspray. It's hairspray. But I got a lesson. It's not about hairspray. People want to be recognized for doing the right things, and we do a terrible job of that in the organizations. We don't know what the right things are, number one, and as we're recognizing them, we don't know how to recognize them. So we have a hideous problem called let's create another budget and see if that transforms the results. So it's all about creating a playbook that integrates all the marketing processes, the sales process, the cultural process, getting everybody highly proficient at their jobs, getting managers knowing how to manage, making the magic happen. It's no accident that the head of the largest analytics company for banks just recently said that every one of the highest performing banks all works with the Emma Group. So I want to close by telling you about my son. Called me one time when he was on spring break. And he had said, Mom, I'm on spring break. And I went, oh, I didn't even know you were going on spring break. Where'd you go? He goes, oh, I'll tell you when I get home. And I'm thinking, all right, okay, that's strange. Why isn't he going to tell me where he is? So it was the next night, my son calls again. It's 9 o'clock Central, where we were living in Minneapolis. And it's clearly wherever he is, it's at 10 o'clock at night. And he calls, and at this time, I say to my husband, something's going on here. Why does a 21-year-old boy call his mama when he is on spring break? He should be pounding back the beer and having a good time, and none of this makes any sense. So he's messing with us, like, what is going on?